when you have those feelings of anxiety or your panic attacks, or you can't eat, can't sleep, you're trembling, you're on the brink of tears, to feel those things in full and remember that they're going to give way to the positive feelings that you yearn so much for.
Hello everyone. Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you for being here. This is another episode of Talk to Me, a podcast where we do ASMR and art and tarot, and we listen to some of your stories. So without any further ado, I'm going to get started with the first story, but before I do that, I want to say thank you to all of you who participated with your stories. I've received quite a few, so I had to make a choice, and this is only a selection of the many messages that I've received, the many voice messages. So thank you, and sorry if I couldn't include your message in the video, but hopefully you're going to be able to take something away from it nevertheless. So let's listen to the first story.
Hello, Amalia. Thank you for hearing our stories. The event that rocked me most in 2021 was when my son lost his pilot status with the United States Air Force because of a medical disqualification. He had wanted to be a pilot since he was 2 and went to the nation's best pilot academy and graduated with honors. The Air Force commissioned him to fly the T-17s before conducting their medical evaluations, but his evaluation showed a very slight colorblind issue, so they transferred him to a different field and will never allow my son to fly again. Mind you, this happened after he had already earned several flying licenses. My son handled the life-altering setback with grace and maturity. It was me that had a hard time accepting his fate. I had never prayed for anything in my life as hard as I prayed for my son to pass his physical evaluations, and the results were devastating. It shook my faith in God. I stopped going to church, stopped praying, and nearly stopped believing in God altogether. I didn't just pray the week of his physical evaluations. I prayed every day for the 4 years leading up to it. Now my faith is hanging on by a thread. If I learned anything from this experience, it's that life sometimes throws those you love most a curveball, and watching them go through a painful experience is harder than going through it yourself. I would trade anything I have to give my son his dream back, but there is nothing I can do for him, and that's what hurts most.
Okay. So this is a story that has many layers. First of all, it's about the failure of a dream. And in this case, the caller, her son, is the one who's affected by this crumbling of the dream, probably the most intensely, and yet it's the most difficult for her to see her son suffer like that. And the second layer of the story is essentially the lack of faith that follows. A lack of faith in God, in providence, in the universe. So it is quite a complex situation. Let's see what the cards have to say about this situation. I'm going to shuffle the cards a little bit. And in the meantime, we let this blue patch dry. right, here we go. So this is guidance for your situation. And that's the Magician. That's awesome. Well, the Magician is number 1 of the major arcana. It's actually the second card. And because the first one is number 0, the Fool. And it's one of those cards that whenever I see it, I instantly get hit by a wave of relief. The Magician is about our creative power, the ability to change situations, to transform them alchemically, with inner work, with a perspective change, and with our actions as well. What you're seeing here on the table in front of the Magician is the representative items for each suit in the tarot. There are 4 suits in the tarot: the Pentacles, the Cups, the Wands, and the Swords. These 4 represent the 4 astrological elements, and they represent 4 functioning levels of humans, namely the feeling level, the active level, the practical level, and the intellectual level. The Magician is playing around with all 4, and he's basically performing a magic trick, creating something out of nothing. That would be the slogan of the Magician, creating something out of nothing. Now, that's an amazing skill to have. And in a situation that seems like you've been defeated, the Magician is here to shine light on the hidden opportunity. So, when it comes to your son's situation, not everything is lost, even though it might seem as though it is. And actually, I got interested, so I looked it up online, and color blindness is not a negating factor necessarily to flying in the US. So there are certain professions that are still in the aviation field that require, the skills of a pilot that perhaps your son could be eligible for. So if it really is his dream to become a pilot, then he has options that he can look into. But on a deeper spiritual level, what the Magician is saying is that this is not the end. This is actually a doorway into embarking upon the most creative, most powerful, most resourceful version of himself that he has ever been. So even though you might not feel like this is success, it truly is. It's, on the one hand, color blindness is obviously not it's not for nothing that these licensing professionals, those who give out the licenses, it's not a coincidence that they require these rigorous medical testing. They want to see that the person who's going to be taking this responsibility is going to be able to safely perform the task. And color blindness, it definitely can cause severe problems. So let's do a thought experiment here. What if your son was able to get in, despite his color blindness, and for some reason wasn't able to see or differentiate between the indicating lights? That would be detrimental, of course. That would be a tragedy. And even though it might seem as though his dream crumbling or coming close to crumbling is the worst thing that can happen, that's really not the worst thing that can happen. And his dreams don't seem to be crumbling. They seem to be going through a phase of rebirth, a phase of recreation. So I wouldn't be worried about your son. I think he's in a great situation to make an exciting turn in his life. And when it comes to you and your faith, I think realizing and recognizing that you have the power, just like the magician does, to create your life, to co-create your life, perhaps that's a better way to put it, to co-create your life with the universe, that you have a say in what happens. Just because there are situations that create a setback does not necessarily have to mean it's the end. You can always find a way around. Any problem that comes up, there's a solution. That's the philosophy of the magician. And that is something that maybe can help you. On to the next voice message.
Hi, Amalia. My name's Lara, and the most difficult thing that I've had to deal with in 2021 was becoming a new mother. It was unexpected. When I found out I was pregnant with her in 2020, I had her in May of 2021 this year, and it has been the hardest thing that I have ever done. Physically, mentally, spiritually, everything. And I have learned so much about it. I've become a more responsible person. I have more appreciation for things now. It's been very humbling, and there's no way to describe what becoming a mother is like. And you think you know beforehand, and you have really no idea until it happens. But I learned about my strength this year, how much I can carry, and yeah, and I guess that'd be it.
All right. Well, this is a situation that many people go through, many women. And we're going to have a look at what you can do with this, what the tarot suggests as a viewpoint, as an alternative perspective. Your current perspective is already pretty good. So, listening to your voice and listening to you telling your story, my impression was that, of course, you're extremely tired, you're exhausted, but there's something happening here that is extremely important, and you're aware of it. That you are in the flow of an extraordinary process, becoming a mother, being a mother. And I've received another message from Liz. Unfortunately, I couldn't include it because it was longer than the limit. But I found her story interesting as well. And it was a very serious story about her almost losing her life during childbirth. So that is also, an aspect of childbirth that needs to be addressed. That it is so taxing on the mother. It's so difficult and exhausting and potentially dangerous. It is a very transformative process. So I'm going to place the card over here. I'm back. My camera's battery has died, so I had to charge it. And in the meantime, this little watercolor painting that I've been doing has dried up. And I still haven't looked at the card. So let's look together. It's the 9 of Pentacles. A really, really beautiful card, which is about the solidity that is built on the foundation of self-reliance. So, what this experience is teaching you, Lara, it's actually to dive deep into and connect with that part of you that is deeply creative and incredibly independent, self-sufficient. In order to be a mother, you have to become a supportive presence for your child. And just like you explained, you are required to do things that go beyond the limitations of what you have believed was possible. So really, it's an extraordinary opportunity to experience more of that powerful feeling. And even though many women might be inclined to think, and I'm also included in this generalization, this wild generalization that I'm just making. So many women might be inclined to think that bringing a child into this world is creating a sort of a cage for you. So once you've had a child, you will have less possibilities or less freedom in your life. But what the 9 of Pentacles is revealing is that this experience is not about learning to be more responsible or learning to put up with limitations. liberating the bondage of motherhood, but as a matter of fact, it is a liberating experience. It's driving you back to your core power. It's showing you that you are more capable. You have more capacity than you perhaps originally would have imagined. So although I'm sure it's a difficult journey, I myself don't have children, so I don't know. But based on what you've told us and what I've heard from other people, it can be an extremely solidifying and empowering experience. So I wish you and your baby all the best, and may you experience this power as you recover and as you get stronger on this journey. Let's go on.
The most difficult thing I had to do in 2021 was quitting the job that took me almost a year to get. I graduated in 2020, and there weren't really a lot of jobs available in my area, especially for entry-level and new college graduates. So after about 6 or 8 months of pretty heavy depression, I finally found this one position, and it was super close to my apartment, a very nice office, very nice perks, and I really loved the people I worked with, but the job itself ended up being pretty terrible. Long story short, I just didn't agree with anything that the particular company was doing, or how they kind of had their own policy and procedures with COVID and how the workers were being treated. It was customer service, so it's very customer is always right. And it ended up in a lot of customers just yelling at us all day long. And it became really difficult for me. And one day I went to the bathroom and decided that I should just end everything, and that would be the easiest way. Obviously, that didn't happen. And I'm doing better now, but I still haven't found another job, and I'm much happier not being there. But I'm kind of sinking back into that depression that I once was at when I couldn't find anything else. So trying to get back out of it a second time is going to be interesting.
So, this is kind of the inverse of the first story, in that the listener who sent this voice message has explained to us that she really wanted this position, that she later on became dissatisfied with, to say the least. And so she really wanted this situation. And when it became a reality, it turned into a nightmare. I think there's this saying that could perhaps fit here. Be careful what you wish for, because it might come true. Now, what is really important here, I think, to address, is that you are able to recognize and listen to yourself adequately enough to realize that this was an impossible situation, an unhealthy situation. And before you did anything irreversible, you managed to escape an awful situation. I have also worked in this industry, the customer service industry, and have to tell you, I completely empathize with you. It can be so difficult. And I'm so sorry that this became an almost tragic situation for you. But I'm really happy that you were able to get out before it was too late. So, let's have a look at your card. And that's the Two of Wands. Okay. The Two of Wands, or the Two of Fire, is a card of action. So while you might be thinking that what you've done, quitting your job, which was admittedly a very difficult thing to do, that's what you have told us, you might be thinking that this was a passive gesture because you withdrew. So in your mind, the narrative could be that you ran away. However, the cards are really directing your attention to the fact that what you created here was a break in the cycle. So this was not a simple act of forfeiting. This is not escapism. You're not weak for having done this. Actually, you are incredibly strong. And the matter of fact is that having done this, you have created a precedent in your life that is going to be incredibly useful moving forward. You said to yourself, enough is enough. I can't take this anymore. I'm not willing to put up with these humiliating circumstances. My health and my sanity are more important than this. So you stood up, you quit, and you're here. Otherwise, who knows what could have happened. So, you made the right choice. And what the cards are asking you to notice is that this was an active participation in your fate. That you stepped up and you made a wave. Wands are connected with the astrological element of fire. And fire is connected with the level of actions in humans. So it has to do with your decisions expressed in a dynamic way. So you removed yourself from the situation, and that was not a passive, that was not a giving up per se. It was you actively creating a new situation, which might seem like it's not ideal just yet. But remember, the same way you are able to quit that job, the same way you are able to draw that boundary, you're going to be able to transform your current situation with your actions as well. So, good luck to you with that. And let's now have a listen to the last voice recording of this video.
Hopefully this isn't too dark of an answer for your question, but anxiety has been the most difficult thing to deal with this last year, specifically in the form of existential dread, a fear of death. And the reasons for that are irrelevant because everybody finds their way there differently. But once you do confront and really dwell on your own mortality, it's terrifying. And what's really helped me this last year, and over time, because it's a skill you have to hone, I think, is utter acceptance of it. When you have those feelings of anxiety or your panic attacks or you can't eat, can't sleep, you're trembling, you're on the brink of tears, to feel those things in full and remember that they're going to give way to the positive feelings that you yearn so much for. And that the source of that anxiety is just the resistance that you put up against those feelings you don't want to feel. Open yourself up and feel them, and over time, I promise, it works. Just feel it.
Thank you for bringing this topic here to us. The fear of death is a very important one. But as I was listening to you, what I was intuitively getting was that this isn't actually a fear of death. This is more along the lines of a fear of fear itself. So obviously, we're all hardwired as humans to want to preserve ourselves for the future, to want to, survive. But really, what is the point of life if you're scared? What does it mean if you are paralyzed, cannot function because of your anxiety? Isn't that somehow counterproductive? So you have recognized this, and you have decided to create a different life, and that takes courage. And we applaud you for that. So now that this little painting has been finished, with the fourth story completing it, let's draw one last card for you to see what the cards are suggesting to you. Alright, here we go. Let's see here. The Two of Cups. Okay. So, this card is asking you to look for connections. It is one thing to be out of the woods. Now that you have found the way out of your fear or your fear of death, you can start living a different life. The Two of Cups, which is the card of a soulful connection between two people, is asking you to really seriously try to think about what the meaning of life is for you. And I'm suspecting that somewhere in there, due to the Two of Cups showing up here, there's a yearning for a true, authentic connection. This card is saying that even though life is scary, and life has a way of breaking us down sometimes, we're really here to love. And your focus on your fears and anxieties might have made you forget how great it is, how wonderful it is to really trust another person. So, with that said, the cards are really incentivizing you to seek that experience out, to find a way to channel the excess energy that is now being created, to channel that into building an emotion-based relationship with another, a true connection. This is most often the card of romantic love, but it can also refer to an intense and rich friendship. At any rate, it is the card of opening to another, receiving another, and enriching your life with the extra energy that is created with that investment. So I hope that you all enjoyed this episode of Talk to Me. Let me know in the comments how you liked it, and if you have any advice for the listeners who have left these voice messages, don't hold back. They are looking for feedback. So if you have something nice or something wise to say, I'd love to read it, and I'm sure that they are too. They are interested as well. So, with that said, I'll let you go. Have a good night, and see you next time.